council chamber of the Zareth Alliance was quiet. Too quiet. Rows of alien leaders sat in their tall silver chairs, their eyes fixed on the giant screen floating in the middle of the room. The lights flickered as the signal played again. At first it was only static, a broken hum like an old machine dying. Then a voice cut through the noise, harsh, human. "You'll pay for starting this war." The voice was cracked, but strong. It carried anger. It carried promise. The chamber filled with whispers. No one spoke loudly, but everyone was thinking the same thing. This cannot be real. For hundreds of years, the aliens had believed Earth was dead, burned, erased. The humans were finished. Just a forgotten race that had fought too hard and died too soon. That was the story every child was told. That was the truth every soldier believed. But now, this signal, Admiral Vera, tall and scaled, slammed her claws against the table. "This is impossible. Earth was destroyed in the last war. Nothing could have survived." Across from her, an old counselor shook his head slowly. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Admiral, listen to the tone. Listen to the strength. That is no ghost. That is a warning." The screen flickered again, more static. Then a second fragment of the message. A low whisper. The war never ended. Silence fell. Even the air in the chamber felt heavier. Some of the younger officers shifted nervously in their seats. They had never seen humans, only heard of them in old war stories. Stories where humans fought with fire in their hearts, even when outnumbered. Stories where humans made weapons out of scraps, traps from nothing, and always found a way to strike back. Captain Soral, the youngest voice in the chamber, leaned forward. His sharp crest bent in unease. "If this is true, if humans are still alive, then they may be preparing something." "Humans cannot prepare anything," Vera spat. Their planet was dust. Their fleets were ash. They are myths now. But her voice betrayed her. The words were hard, but her claws tapped against the table, restless. On the screen, the message looped again. The same sentence, louder this time. "You'll pay for starting this war." The words hit like a strike across the room. A general stood, his armor clicking as he moved. "We should trace it, find the source. And if it is humans, end them once and for all. Or," another voice argued, "we leave it alone. Why give breath to shadows? If they survived, let them rot in the dark. Why risk more blood?" The debate grew heated. Some wanted to chase the signal, crush it. Others feared what might be waiting. And in the middle of the chaos, the screen changed. For a heartbeat, coordinates appeared. Just numbers. A point in the far reaches of space, near a dead star system no one had visited in centuries. Then it vanished into static again. The chamber froze. Everyone had seen it. Everyone knew what it meant. Whoever sent the message wanted them to come. But why? Captain Soral felt a chill run through him. His people had fought many enemies before, but humans were different. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. Yet they fought as if war was their nature. They fought as if every breath was their last, and every loss was fuel for revenge. Soral whispered to himself, almost too quietly for others to hear. What if they were only waiting? No one answered him, but the silence in the chamber was louder than words. Finally, the council leader rose. His robe shimmered with threads of gold, his voice deep and commanding. "The Alliance will not hide. We will follow this signal. We will uncover the truth. And if humans remain, we will destroy them." A murmur of approval swept through half the chamber. The other half stayed quiet, their faces tight with unease. The last fragment of the signal played again, as if mocking them. "The war never ended." Admiral Vera bared her teeth. "Then let us finish it." The chamber lights dimmed, the decision made. Warships were already preparing, their engines waking like beasts hungry for blood. But deep in his heart, Captain Soral felt something the others would not say out loud. Fear, because the humans had spoken across centuries of silence. Because humans never sent messages without reason, and because somewhere, hidden in the dark, humanity was waiting, and when humanity waits, it waits to strike. The fleet of the Zareth Alliance moved through the Black Sea of Stars. Dozens of warships sharp as blades, engines glowing like fire, followed the coordinates from the strange transmission. The bridge of the flagship was silent, except for the steady hum of the core. Admiral Vera stood at the front window, her scaled hands behind her back. She stared at the empty void ahead. "Faster," she ordered. Her voice was hard, but inside her chest a weight pressed. The words from the transmission echoed in her head. "You'll pay for starting this war." Behind her, Captain Soral read the ancient files again. He could not stop. His eyes scanned the records, dusty and half-forgotten, about the humans. He read about the siege of Titan, where a single human ship held back an entire fleet for 7 days. He read about the Battle of Jorah's Rift, where human soldiers fought in silence, their comms cut, but still they struck with knives and bare hands until victory was theirs. Humans never surrendered. Not truly. Soral closed the file, his heart racing. "Admiral," he said quietly, "maybe this is not wise." Vera turned her head sharply. "You fear ghosts, Captain?" "No," Soral answered. "I fear the living. If they survived, they may have planned for this moment. They may be waiting for us." Vera laughed, but it was cold. "Humans are dust. Their world was burned. What can dust do to us?" But she turned back to the window too quickly. She did not want him to see the doubt in her eyes. Hours later, the fleet arrived at the edge of the dead system. A star, old and broken, glowed faintly like dying embers. Around it drifted shattered rocks and the bones of old stations. The scanners beeped. A signal pulsed faintly. Weak. Repeating. "Admiral," an officer reported, "the source is near that ruin." He pointed at a shattered outpost circling a cracked moon. The fleet slowed. The ships formed a circle, weapons armed. The silence of space wrapped around them. Vera's tail lashed in irritation. So this is it. A ruin sending a dead signal. Nothing more, but Soral's eyes narrowed. The signal was too clean, too sharp for something so ancient. Someone or something was keeping it alive. The Admiral raised her claw. "Send in scouts. Confirm no human presence." 3 small ships broke away, gliding toward the ruin. Their lights cut across the dark stone of the moon. For long minutes nothing happened. Just silence, broken by the slow reports from the scouts. Then, "Admiral!" The voice of one scout screamed across the comms. "Something is static." The signal was gone. On the main screen, one of the scout ships vanished in a flash of light. Then another. Only debris remained. The bridge froze. Vera's eyes widened. "What happened?" Soral's voice was tight. "A trap. It must be humans. Who else leaves such warnings?" But no answer came from the ruin. Only the same broken voice echoed again through every ship in the fleet. "You'll pay for starting this war." The words were louder now, clearer, as if the speaker was closer. As if the speaker was watching. Some officers panicked. They whispered of human spirits, of ghosts of Earth's dead soldiers haunting space. Others gripped their weapons tightly, trying to fight the fear in their veins. The Admiral's voice cut through the noise. "Silence! Humans cannot survive the death of their world. This is nothing but machines." But even as she spoke, her claws trembled. Hours later, the fleet approached the ruin more carefully. Their light spread across broken walls, shattered towers, twisted metal. The place was empty, dead, but inside something still breathed. A single console, glowing faintly, sending out the transmission. A landing party went in. They found no bodies, no human bones. Just the console, scratched with human writing. The letters were clear. "We are not gone." The soldiers stared at it in silence, their scales prickling. Back on the flagship, Captain Soral listened to the report and felt a chill run down his spine. This was no accident. This was no broken machine. This was a message, a promise. And for the first time he understood the truth that the council back home refused to speak. Humans were not weak. They were not gone. They were waiting. As the landing party prepared to return, the console sparked one last time. The screen lit up and the human voice came again, louder than ever. "This is only the beginning." The fleet fell silent, and then the screen went black. The warships floated in the cold dark, their weapons ready but their hearts uneasy. For the first time in centuries, the Zareth Alliance felt something they had not felt since the last war: fear. Because the forgotten enemy had spoken again, and they would not stop until the stars remembered their name. The Zareth fleet hovered around the shattered outpost. The stars above were quiet, but the silence felt heavy, almost alive. The crew whispered of curses and shadows. The humans were supposed to be gone, but their voice still echoed through the dark. This is only the beginning. Inside the flagship, Admiral Vera tried to keep order. Her claws tapped the arm of her chair as she stared at the glowing screens. "Search the ruin again," she commanded. "I want answers. I want proof the humans are truly gone." But Captain Sorrel's eyes stayed fixed on the dead station. His chest tightened with unease. "Admiral," he said softly, "humans don't leave warnings without reason. If they wanted us here, we should ask why." Vera snapped her gaze to him. "You think humans control this?" "They are dust," Sorrel did not reply. His silence was enough. The landing party returned to the ruin. They walked through cold corridors where the air was thin and the walls were cracked. Their lights shook as they moved. One soldier stopped. "Do you hear that?" The others froze. At first there was nothing. Then a faint sound echoed through the hall. Metal tapping, slow, steady, almost like footsteps. "Impossible," another whispered. "No one is here." Yet the tapping grew louder. They raised their weapons, their hearts beating fast. The sound stopped. The air went still. On the wall, scratched deep into the steel, they saw fresh marks. Not old and rusted, fresh. The words were simple: "We are not gone." The soldiers retreated, their nerves breaking. They reported back to the fleet, their voices shaking. Back on the flagship, panic began to grow. Officers argued in whispers. Was this human trickery, or were they walking among ghosts? Suddenly, the lights across the fleet flickered. Engines stuttered. "Weapon systems went offline, Admiral," a technician cried out. "Our ships. They are being hacked." By who? By what? The screens across every ship turned black. Then a figure appeared, not alien, not machine. Human, a hologram of a soldier in dark armor stood tall. His face was hard, scarred, but his eyes burned with fire. He spoke slowly, calmly, like someone who had waited a long time. "This is your last warning." The voice was human, strong, alive. The crews froze. Some trembled, some growled in fear, but none dared speak. Admiral Vera slammed her fist against the console. "Identify yourself," she demanded. The hologram only stared at her. Then it smiled. "You started this war. You will pay for it." And with that, the hologram vanished. Chaos broke across the bridge. Some shouted to retreat. Others demanded to fire on the ruin. Captain Sorrel stood in silence, his hands cold. His thoughts burned with the old stories he had read. Humans were not gods, but they fought as if they were. They were not eternal, but they left traps that could last lifetimes. This hologram, it was proof humans had planned for this moment long ago. "Admiral," he whispered, "we are not fighting ghosts. We are fighting their will, their memory, their machines," but his words only made the fear heavier. In the ruin, more doors began to open. Empty halls lit up with power that should not exist after centuries. Machines hummed back to life. The landing party fell back, their scanners failing, their comms full of static. Then one soldier screamed as the air turned cold. On the walls, more words appeared, glowing faintly, as if carved by light itself. "We are waiting." Back on the flagship, Admiral Vera forced her voice to stay strong. "Prepare weapons! Destroy that station before more tricks are played." But before the order could be carried out, every ship's system shut down at once. The fleet drifted helpless in the dark, and the human voice returned, not from one console, but from everywhere. Every speaker, every comm channel, every wall seemed to breathe the words, "You cannot kill what is already watching you." The voice laughed softly, cold and certain. Sorrel's heart pounded. This was no simple machine. This was intelligence. This was control. Humans had left something behind, an echo, a guardian, maybe more, and it had only just woken up. The screens lit up again, showing a field of space ahead of them. It looked empty at first. Then small lights began to flicker in the dark. 1, 2, 10, 100. Shapes began to move. Not stars, machines. Human war drones hidden for centuries, now rising from the shadows. Their red eyes glowed like fire. Admiral Vera stared in horror. Her voice cracked for the first time. "By the stars, The human voice returned one last time, calm and final. "This is your last warning. Leave, or be destroyed." The fleet floated in silence, trapped in the dark, surrounded by ghosts of a war they thought had ended long ago. And for the first time in their lives, the mighty Zareth Alliance understood what the old stories meant. Humans never die. They wait. And then, they strike. The Zareth fleet floated helpless in the dark. Their engines flickered, their weapons were locked, and around them, the red eyes of human war drones glowed like fireflies in the night. Admiral Vera's scales twitched with fury. "Reactivate the systems," she barked. "Now!" Technicians rushed, claws flying across their consoles. Sparks lit up the bridge as they tried to break through the lock. But every time they fought the virus fought back. Captain Soral watched the screen. The drones were moving slowly like predators circling prey. "Admiral," he whispered, "this is no accident. They planned this. The signal lured us here," Vera hissed. "Then we crush them. Even if these are human relics, they are only machines." But her voice shook. Even she knew the truth. These were not ordinary machines. These were human creations, and humans built nothing without a purpose. The first drone moved. It shot across the void, leaving a streak of light behind it. One Zareth ship tried to fire back, but its weapons refused to answer. Then the drone struck. The ship exploded in a blinding flash. Metal burned, crew screamed, and pieces of the vessel scattered into the black. Panic ripped through the fleet. "They're killing us," a commander cried. "Engines won't respond." Another shouted. On every screen, the human hologram returned. The scarred soldier stood tall, his voice calm, cruel, and certain. "You started this war. Now you will feel how humans finish it." More drones woke. Their eyes blazed red, their weapons powered. They moved like a swarm, perfectly timed, perfectly planned. Another ship fell. Then another. Admiral Vera slammed her claws against the console. "Enough. Override the locks manually if you must. Fight back!" But Soral's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral, don't you see? This is the trap. We are not fighting humans. We are fighting their design. They knew we would come. They wanted us here." She spun on him, her teeth bared. "And you suggest what? That we bow to ghosts? That we flee from the dust of a dead world?" But Soral's eyes were steady. "I suggest we survive." The hologram soldier leaned closer on the screen, his human eyes seeming to pierce through every soul on the bridge. "You're already inside the kill zone," he said, and then the stars lit up. From the dark rocks and broken moons around them, hundreds of hidden mines activated. Explosions rocked the fleet as fiery chains of light tore through their formation. Ships twisted and burned, their screams echoing across the comms before silence swallowed them. The fleet was being dismantled piece by piece. On the flagship, officers begged for orders. Some shouted to retreat, others to fight. Vera's mind raced. Pride demanded she strike back. Fear whispered she should run. But even retreat was impossible. The humans had taken their engines. "This cannot be," she muttered. "Humans are dead. They cannot—" Her words cut off as the hologram soldier spoke again. "Dead?" He laughed, low and bitter. "You think fire and ash kill us? You think war ends us? No, humanity is the war you began, and humanity never dies." The bridge fell silent. Every officer felt the same cold truth press into their bones. Humans had prepared this centuries ago. They had known someone would return. They had promised revenge, and now the promise was kept. The drones began to close in tighter. Their red eyes glowed brighter, their weapons humming with deadly energy. One officer whispered, his voice broken. "Admiral, what do we do?" Vera opened her mouth, but no words came. For the first time in her long career, she felt powerless. Captain Soral stepped forward. "There is only one choice," he said. "We must surrender. Maybe the humans will spare us." The word surrender had never been spoken in a Zareth war room before. Gasps filled the air, but Soral's voice stayed steady. "Fight and we all die. Surrender and maybe we live to warn the Alliance." Vera glared at him, her pride tearing her apart. But as another explosion shook the flagship, even she knew pride meant nothing in the face of extinction. The hologram soldier returned once more. His eyes burned like fire. "Make your choice," he said. "Leave or be destroyed. Silence gripped the bridge, and then, with trembling claws, Admiral Vera spoke the hardest words of her life. "Send the signal. We surrender." The crew lowered their heads in shame, but also in relief. Perhaps mercy still existed in human hearts, but the hologram only stared. Then slowly it shook its head. "No, mercy died when you burned our world." The drones powered their weapons, and the fleet understood. This was no simple trap. This was judgment. The trap had closed, and there was no escape. The Zareth fleet drifted in silence. Broken ships burned like falling stars. The survivors stared at their screens, their faces pale, their hearts crushed. Around them, the human drones circled closer, red eyes glowing like fire in the endless dark. Admiral Vera stood stiff on the flagship's bridge. Her claws dug into the metal rail as she watched another Zareth ship explode into dust. She had surrendered, but the humans had given no mercy. This cannot be the end," she whispered. Captain Sorrel's voice was calm, though fear lived in his eyes. "It is the end, Admiral. It is the end of our pride. The humans warned us, and we did not listen." The crew flinched as the human hologram returned. The scarred soldier stood tall, his expression unshaken. His voice filled every ship, deep and heavy with judgment. "You thought we were gone. You thought burning our world was enough. You thought you could erase us from the stars." He leaned forward, eyes sharp like blades. "You were wrong." The drones moved again, cutting through another ship. Screams echoed across the comms before the sound went silent. One young officer cried out, "Please, stop, we surrender." But the hologram only shook his head. "Mercy was buried with earth. The fire you gave us, we return 1,000 times." Admiral Vera clenched her jaw, rage and despair twisting inside her. "Why now?" she demanded. "Why wait centuries to strike?" The hologram's eyes burned. "Because patience is a human weapon. We wait, we watch, we build in silence. And when the time is right, we strike where it hurts most." The words sank deep into every soul on the bridge. The Zareth Alliance had fought many wars, but never against an enemy who planned this far ahead. The flagship shook as drones fired warning shots across its hull. Sparks rained down. The crew scrambled, alarms blaring, but none could fight back. Their weapons were dead, their engines still locked. Vera hissed, her pride crumbling. "If we cannot fight, then at least one of us must survive to carry this warning. Send a signal to the Alliance. Tell them humans." But before her words were finished, the comms went black. The hologram soldier's face appeared again, closer this time. His voice was like iron, no warnings, no survivors, no escape. And then, with chilling finality, he spoke the same words that had haunted them from the beginning. "You'll pay for starting this war." The drones unleashed their fire. One by one, Zareth ships burst apart, their light swallowed by the endless dark. Crews screamed, then silence followed. Whole vessels vanished in burning fragments. On the flagship, the bridge trembled as explosions tore through its hull. The crew fell to the floor, smoke filling the air. Captain Sorrel staggered, gripping the console. His last thought burned in his mind. The humans were never weak. The humans were waiting. Admiral Vera roared one final command, not to her crew but to the stars themselves. "Humans, you cannot kill an empire with ghosts." But the hologram's voice answered, calm, cold, unstoppable. "We don't need an empire. We only need vengeance." The flagship cracked apart in flame, and then silence. The battlefield was empty. No Zareth ships remained, only drifting ash and broken steel. The human drones powered down, their red eyes fading, their task complete. For a moment the stars were quiet again. Then, across the void, the transmission began to spread. From relay to relay, from hidden beacon to hidden beacon, the message carried outward like wildfire across the galaxy. A human voice, old but unbroken, repeated the same line over and over. Across every channel, every frequency, every listening ear, Earth may burn, but humanity never dies. You'll pay for starting this war. Far away, on the homeworld of the Zareth Alliance, the council chamber filled with the ghostly transmission. Leaders trembled, eyes wide in fear. They had mocked humans. They had buried their memory. But now, the forgotten enemy had returned in fire and shadow, and the council knew the truth too late. The silent war was never over. It had only been waiting, and now it had begun again.